Well, good morning, folks. It's really good to be back here. I think it's been maybe 2 to 3 years since the last time that Kathy or I are here, so it's good to come back to reconnect with faces that we're familiar with. But hey, like any church, it's awesome to see a whole lot of new faces that have been here maybe several weeks or a couple of years. So thank you for the opportunity we had already with the children and then in the Sunday school to be able to share what God's doing over in Cuba. And looking forward to sharing a few things from this psalm that has met Kathy and I right where we're at in a lot of pain right now. But some stuff that's real, some stuff that you and I both can hold on to, and all of the ups and downs and the challenges that we have in our life of faith with the Lord. Pastor asked if I would mention just a couple of things about the work in Cuba for those who weren't able to be here earlier, and 3 words come to mind. Okay, maybe we can hold on to 3 words, right? One is the word collapse. Collapse. Just think of someone falling down in front of you. Crisis is different than collapse. Normally it comes before collapse, and crisis has been the situation of every part of daily life in Cuba for years now. When I used to share in churches or just one-on-one with people, I would say it's in crisis with this, that, and the other. It's gone past crisis. It is now in collapse in every area, in the health area, in the educational area. Not yet the church. Not yet the church. I'll leave another word with you guys, and that is the word encouragement. You know, the kind of encourage one another in the Lord scriptures, those one another places that we have. I would say that's what we're involved with, and that's what we all need, right? We all need, no matter whether we're teens, no matter whether we're young families or older, and on our own, we all need encouragement one of another. And that's probably the key thing of what Kathy and I are blessed to be a part of, coming alongside pastors and families, and through them, their churches in Cuba. It's to encourage them. Sometimes that's with truth, and truth might be a lesson in a classroom for several days, or a women's conference, or it might be just something that needed to be heard at the right time around a meal table, around a table with a meal together. So what was the first word? Collapse. Yeah, okay, I mix it up with crisis, but collapse. The second word? Encouragement. And the third word, and this is where you guys come in, okay, and we come in, is opportunity. Opportunity. Whether it's here in your own backyard, whenever a tornado comes through or something else happens, right? When a place is in crisis or collapse, it also is an opportunity for people, particularly people who are together, people of faith, people of hope, people of love, people of joy, people of peace, like we say we are and live to be. And so this is what's going on in Cuba right now, folks. Whereas maybe things have been struggling through COVID or through a lot of churches are losing people left, right, and center, losing pastors left, right, and center. Right now, what we are seeing as we enter into 2024 is belief, is faith, is new things starting and going, and God is inviting people to be a part of things. So, huge opportunity. God's inviting the Cubans to him, and the Cubans invite us as foreigners from whatever other place to join them. They would love to join hands with us because there's plenty to do, and God is on the move. We get to have the opportunity. If you want to later on find out more information, at the back table we've got cards. It'll lead you to websites, it'll lead you to Gmails, etc. So we'd love to interact with you. But thank you. Before we say anything further, thank you also as a church. 20 plus years. I didn't have grey hair back when we started. I didn't have glasses for that matter. But 20 plus years, this church has come alongside us, has praised, has supported us, and has been with us as ministry has grown, has changed, and gone from place to place. So thank you. We look forward to the years ahead. I'm going to invite you to open to Psalm 46. Psalm 46 with me. That's where we're going to be mainly camping between there and one passage in Kings. We'll end up be going backwards and forwards because most songs are inspired by some situation, right? And so this song refers back to a situation that happened back in 2 Kings. So find in either in your apps or in your Bible to Psalm 46, and then go back a little bit of a click to 2 Kings chapter 18. And between these two things, we're going to be looking at and being encouraged, hopefully, this morning. Psalm number 46. It starts off lovely, and we read those verses this morning. It ends lovely. And in the middle, it's sort of like, what does that all mean? Well, we're going to find out what that means as we study the context of why this thing was written earlier on. But let's read it together, shall we? This is God's word for you and for me, for those here, for those online here today. It is truth that you can count on, that you can lean into, and that you get to share with your loved ones and with your neighbors and with the lost. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear, though the earth gives way, though the mountains be moved into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam, though the mountains tremble at its swelling. There is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy habitation of the Most High. God is in the midst of her. She shall not be moved. God will help her when morning dawns. The nations rage, the kingdoms totter. He utters his voice, the earth melts. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. Come, behold the works of the Lord, how he has brought desolations on the earth. He makes wars cease to the ends of the earth. He breaks the bow and shatters the spear. He burns the chariots with fire. Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. May the Lord bless his word in our lives. And boy, I'm hoping that something sticks after you leave here today and is going to help you with your realities as you go home today. Face whatever you're facing and what God may have ahead of you in this coming week as well. So basically, this morning, folks, in the time that I have, I want to lean into just a couple of things. One is an explanation of this text, because when you see the story behind this thing, it's really quite amazing. It's really full color. I want to tap into some of the experiences that we've had in Cuba as well, and how that relates to this text. And then I just want to also maybe just apply it a little bit with some questions and thoughts that hopefully God will use, as he has in my life, to stick with you and to help you and get you thinking about how is it, because this isn't just a fact, this is actually a way for us to walk in to know that God is truly our fortress, that he's truly our refuge. So let me give you a bit of background on this song, okay? Go back a little while, 701 BC. That's a little while ago, okay? But basically, you have the kingdom of Judah at this time of writing. His king, their king, is Hezekiah. Hezekiah, when you go back to the book of 2 Kings, he is one of a kind. Okay, he is a king like no other. This is a guy that. This is a guy who's tracking with God. This is a guy who has integrity. This is a guy who has courage to stand against all the crowd when they're not standing with him. This is a guy who's actually a young man in his 20s when he first becomes a king. He's a young man of faith. A man of faith whose life influences and brings change to the culture and to the context around him. If you were there in 2 Kings chapter 18, it says this about this guy. It doesn't say this about many others, but it says this about Hezekiah in verse 3 down to verse 7. It says, and he did what was right in the eyes of the Lord according to all that David his father had done. How did he do this? He removed the high places. Verse 5, he trusted in the Lord, the God of Israel, so that there was none like him among the kings of Judah after him, nor among those who were before him. What else did he do? Verse 6, he held fast to the Lord. Verse 7, and the Lord was with him. Wherever he went out, he prospered. This is a one-of-a-kind guy. And I wish that that's where the story ends, right? He was tight with the Lord was tight with him, and in everything that he did, it prospered. Wouldn't you like that to be the story of your life? That everything was just wonderful. When I think maybe I was younger, sitting in the pews of my church back there in New Zealand, I think maybe my idea of the Christian life was to obey God, follow him, and live the good Christian life. Now that I'm a bit older, I realize that maybe it's not that simple. That life itself is a whole lot harder. And I think that even though being a very, very positive person, I think that it's fair enough to say that even when you're not looking for trouble, trouble will look and search you out. And there's a laugh. Yeah. So, and this is exactly what we have in the situation. Again, what's said of Hezekiah as the king is that there was no one after him or no one before him that was this tight with God. And God blessed him and God blessed his kingdom. But you're going to see down in verse 13 of chapter 18 that trouble comes knocking on his door. And I'm talking about an army of trouble. It says here, in the 14th year of King Hezekiah, Sennacherib, the king of Assyria, came up against all the fortified cities of Judah, and he took them. Yeah? And then it says, all of a sudden, he's outside the walls of Jerusalem, camped there with his army, laying siege to that place as well. Basically, I would encourage you to read chapter 18, chapter 19 to get the full deals of what's going on here. But basically, this is the situation. You have Israel at the time is divided in two. It's the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom, okay? The northern kingdom had king after king, and not one of them was good. Not one of them. They were all evil. But I got to give the kings a bit of a break because the people weren't that good either, okay? But God sent his prophets to them, one after another, to teach them the truth, to turn them around, to convict them, and to say, hey, listen, change your direction. You're not going a direction. Did they? No. So he warned them. And then what you have later on in this text here in 2 Kings is you have the Assyrian army show up to the northern territory. They are under siege for 3 years. 3 long years, their main city of Samaria is locked down. What happened in that time is barbarous. It shouldn't be in the word because it's supposed to be pretty good in here, right? But it was ugly. It was ugly what happened there on that siege. And so then what happens, sure enough, is that the people of Israel, those that are left, are taken off into captivity over to Assyria. Okay? This is all happening in the 6th year of when Hezekiah is king of a lower kingdom, the kingdom of Judah. Not that far away. You can walk the distance between those two places. But now, several years later now, in fact, 8 years later, it's a different guy with a different funny name, all right, Sennacherib, all right? But it's the same Assyrian people. And they're back with the same motives to take control, murder, plunder, take them into captivity. And so this is the situation that's going on right now. So coming back here to Psalms chapter 46, you get the situation that I've just talked about. It brings light to the words, it brings meaning, and it brings depth of soul to these words that God is our refuge. He is our strength. He is our very present help in trouble. And then it says, therefore, we will not fear. Guys, this is a savage army year after year outside their doors, right? And it says here, we will not fear. And you know, it's something that's interesting, isn't it, here? It says that though this happened, though this happened, though this happened. This is not this, although this may happen in the future. This is more of a thing of knowing the context is, even though this thing is going on right now, even though we God's people are being hit time and time again by this thing and that thing. We're being tested, we're being slandered, everything is coming up. The enemy is incredibly strong, right? Even though it says we know that our God is our fortress. I want to say first off here, if we get to the point of saying that God is our fortress, we need to do like Hezekiah did, and we need to trust deeply. Trust deeply, like your life counts on it, and your children's and your grandchildren's life count on it. Trust deeply in the Lord when you're in deep trouble. We need to trust deeply in the Lord. There's an interesting thing that goes on here back in 2 Kings. I won't read it, I'll refer to it. Again, if you look at it later on, it's interesting. You have the representatives. There's 3 men that Hezekiah sends out to talk with the bargainers, the leaders of the army, right? The Sennacherib's army. So they get together and they have a powwow about what's going on. And they're at the base of the wall of Jerusalem. And these guys, they're not only warriors, apparently they're translators. They know lots of languages. And they speak in the Hebrew nation, in their language. And Hezekiah's men's kind of like say to them, he says, listen, do us a favor, will you? We know Aramaic. Speak in Aramaic, because we don't want the hearts of the people on the wall to hear and melt. Well, what was the response of the enemy? Forget that. You don't want to know what they say next. It's R-rated, and it's in here, all right? But basically their answer to that was, what do you think? We're here just for the king and for you guys? We're here to ruin and to destroy all of the people as well. Let them hear in their own language, yeah? Let them hear in their own language. And as I was listening to this and thinking about this in the passage, I kind of like got to think just how astute the enemy is often. Just how astute he is, how clever, how cunning, how seemingly he's kind of like, does he read our emails, so to speak, or our texts? He has a way of knowing where our weaknesses are and attacking at those points. Sometimes, honestly, in our Christian lives, it comes down to the fact that we've stopped certain practice or we've let a little bit of space or a little bit of our boundaries go. Next thing you know, he's right in there, ripping at us, driving at us, having a go at us and having a go at our families and having a go at our children. As it works in wars in these days, basically the people of God did what the king said. And the king had an incredible faith, and he continued to trust in the Lord. And what he told the people to do, he says, do not communicate with them. Do not entertain their thoughts. Don't even go that way. And so in 2 Kings, it tells us there that they did not reply to the slanders and to the thoughts. They said, do not trust your king. He and his God will not deliver you. But they trusted in the king. And they trusted in the God of their God, the God who had been faithful to them, who had made promises, who had made promises, who had made covenants, and had shown his faithfulness to them in the past. And so they continued to trust in the Lord, and we must continue to trust in the Lord. I'll get you to turn to verse 4 and 5, which for me, when I first read it, was down, that sounds poetical, but what on earth does it have to do with this context? Yeah, sure, God is our refuge, God is our strength, but there is a river whose streams make glad the city of God. It sounds like someone's painting at this time, right? I mean, it sounds beautiful. The holy habitation of the Most High. God is in the midst of her, and she shall not be moved. What's this all about? But when you understand the context of what inspired this song, you understand very well what's going on. And in fact, Kath and I were in Israel this last year. We didn't get to see this, but it still exists today, what this is talking about. Because the king Sennacherib was drawn away into another fight, and he ends up coming back. And word is out to Hezekiah that the army is coming back to us again, okay? They left for a moment, for a breather, but they're coming back again. And God gives Hezekiah the wisdom to see the blessing that was right in front of him. And this gets back to this idea of how are we supposed to live knowing that God is our strength, God is our fortress. We need people not only to keep trusting deeply when we're in deep trouble, but we need to acknowledge God's provision and His presence in every moment of our lives, particularly when we're up against it. And this is what happened. God says to Hezekiah, and I don't know how many it was, it doesn't tell us in any scriptures, but the people of God got behind this idea. There was this spring, this deep spring in the valley outside of the wall of Jerusalem, in the Kidron Valley, which is, you can see it from the walls, yeah? But there was a spring, a natural spring. Before the army arrived to their doorstep, they redirected that spring underground, people, with stones. You can see the entrance of it today still. They redirected an underground aqueduct, 1,777 feet, that went into the lower city of David. And that was what held them all of the years while they continued to wait on God. Because a siege, what does a siege do? You're not worried about the enemy getting inside your walls. You're worried because you can't get outside of your walls. And you starve. And you don't have any water, so therefore you die. That's the whole idea of a siege, yeah? But God knew. And God had already provided right there in front of them what they needed to be able to survive and continue to see the deliverance and the goodness of the Lord. Yeah? In our lives, God puts things, God puts people around us to help us, but we need to acknowledge that His provision and His presence. You know, this Psalm 46, the reason we get to even enjoy it today, I wish we knew how to sing it today, probably with more of a Hebrew flair, but probably more tambourines and things going on in the background. But the reason we do is because they took time. They took time to remember what God had done. And they wrote words inspired by the situation. I think if we are to see God, and our children and our grandchildren are to see God as a refuge, as our fortress, then we also need to take time to remember His faithfulness, His deliverance, the victories that He gives us. For some people, that could be journaling. I've started journaling. I never used to do it. I started doing it now every Saturday morning, reflecting on my week, reflecting what God has done and who He has been faithful, yeah? But it may be something else. You may have a photo, or you may have a verse of Scripture that you may want to put on the mirror in the bathroom like we do. Maybe it's a plaque you put at the office or at school, wherever you may be. But something reminding us of the goodness and the greatness and the faithfulness of the God. That is how we continue to say, Lord, not will be, but the Lord is today and He is tomorrow. Amen. Our strength, our fortress, our deliverance. Well, come back to Psalms here. And it says here in verse 6, the nations rage, the kingdoms totter. He utters His voice and the earth melts. Honestly, if you go back to the text, I think this is referring to Sennacherib and his threats. He's uttering his voice. And yes, the cities and nations, they shuddered. And all the people's hearts were melting. But then again, comes back to the truth again. Yes, realizing the struggles that we go through, but it says, but the Lord of hosts, He is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. And it says several things down there later. But we need to continue to trust God deeply when we're in deep trouble. We need to, these songs talk about here, we need to acknowledge God's presence and God's power and His deliverance in our lives. This last bit here makes me think about we need to follow the godly examples of others. Well, maybe the realities are hard, and maybe we ourselves are telling ourselves things we shouldn't be telling ourselves. We need the voices of other people. Sometimes it's family, sometimes it's friends, sometimes it's pastors. Sometimes, thank goodness, He will even use unbelievers to tell us the truth that we need to hear as well. Sometimes it goes like that there. But we need to follow, and for sake of time, I'm going to wrap these things here up here, but Hezekiah was amazing. He kept the main things the main things. And that's why he ended up having a victory and his people had the deliverance from this mighty army. He kept the main things the main things. And that's what we have to do, people. Yeah? For ourselves, for our marriages, for our families, for our communities, for our churches, we need to keep the main things the main things. Hezekiah, under all of this pressure, and he is the king and it's all on him. They're all looking to him. Yeah? What does he do when he's under threat? If you go to 2 Kings, you'll see he did the same thing twice because that's what he always did. He went to his knees. I might ask, when was the last time you were on your knees? But he went to his knees in prayer before the Lord at the temple of the Lord. The first time he went there, it was just like, I don't know what to do. Lord, help me. Give me wisdom to know what to do. The second time, he's got this piece of paper that Sennacherib's men had given to him and said, basically, surrender or that's it. And no one else is going to deliver you. No other God has delivered anybody else. Who is your God that you can trust in that will deliver you? Who do you think you are against me, mighty Sennacherib? And so Hezekiah lays this thing out at the temple before the Lord. He says, Lord, I don't know what to do with this, but I bring it towards you. It's actually interesting in the context because in this particular case, here he is praying to God, and God's speaking to Isaiah the prophet elsewhere. And Isaiah says to him, he says, you've been praying, because God's been telling me that you've been praying to him, and this is what God says. This is his word for you. So he prayed. He depended on other people. Is it 11:21? Oh, shoot. This is where I was going to bring a whole lot of Cuba in. But here's the thing. Hezekiah went to Isaiah. Isaiah was a man of God. I guess it's hard for us sometimes to be able to know that God is our fortress and God is our refuge, and we can say it and we can sing it because sometimes we're on our own. Isaiah had someone else to run to for wisdom, for help, for prayer. You and I need other people to be able to run to be able to talk to be able to pray with, be able to get wisdom from. We all need that. Teenagers need that. Kids need that probably. But we all need that. I guess my question is, who is that person for you? Can you name the name of that person that no matter what happens, or better said, when everything falls apart, you can communicate with them, you can go to them, and they will be godly counsel for you? Hezekiah was an incredible example. Huh? When he had the problem, the first thing he did, not the last thing he did, the first thing he did was he got on his knees and he took it to God. Sometimes when we're in the heat of it, the thick of it, for some reason, that's not what we do, but that's what we should do. And he also reached out for help from others. We need people. In fact, we need to be that person that helps others as well. But then I would say, thirdly as well, is that when it doesn't seem like it's possible, but it just seems like it's going from bad to worse and that you are going to die or that someone is going to die, you've just got to keep waiting on the Lord, that he will show up with his grace and his mercy and his deliverance in the morning. When you read this, there's a reason why they wrote a song, people. Hezekiah hung on, and his people hung on. It was not easy at all. Not easy at all. But they continued to believe in the goodness and the faithfulness of God. And one night, I'm sure there were men at the walls watching, just in case the enemy was going to attack that night. But while others were sleeping, one dude showed up. I'm not talking about Hezekiah. I'm not talking about Isaiah. One angel showed up. Did you hear me? One. That one angel that night took care of 185,000 men. You know how many that is? That's a few football stadiums, people. One angel showed up when God said, it's now time to deal with this. Sennacherib was defeated. He tailed it back home. I won't tell you the rest of the story, but it didn't end up any better for him as soon as he got home either. The shame that he had to face. But here's the thing, people. God is our refuge. He is our fortress. He is a very present help in trouble. You got to keep praying. You got to look. See, here's the thing. It doesn't say God is my fortress. It's our fortress. We have to depend on each other. We have to care for each other. We have to comfort each other. We have to challenge each other. We have to go to God for each other. Which, by the way, Pastor, I was just blessed to hear that you got this meeting over here for the community. This prayer is a part of this church. Praise the Lord for that. I pray the Lord will continue to bless you all. Take note of God's presence and His power. Sometimes there is the promises of God. Sometimes He'll even put a stream nearby that will feed you daily because He is our living water. Thank you. I love you. God bless you.